What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Fringe. Things are about to get real costly in Canada. In fact, Mark Carney's new form of the carbon tax is upon us. It's not clickbait. It's not drawing you in to tell you something else. It's a new form of carbon tax. And this is how Mark Carney plans to get his money back from Canadians for reducing the carbon tax to zero. Now, as it's May long weekend, it's probably good to mention and prudent to mention that across the country, at least in Alberta, from what I've seen, as Mark Carney reduced the carbon tax to zero, we may not be seeing the carbon pricing on our utility bills anymore. But when you look at the fuel stations, when you look at your gas prices, gas, at least, and I'm going to use the figures from Spruce Grove where I am, gas dropped to record lows of about $1.10 per liter just after April 1st. And surprisingly, by May long weekend, we're back up to $1.35. Gas prices are where they were just before the carbon tax disappeared. So it doesn't matter whether there's a carbon tax. What that essentially tells you, while oil is at record low prices, is that the carbon tax had nothing to do with what we were paying for gasoline. This is just pumping in their slush fund. It was just going to a different place. Now, Mark Carney is implementing new ways of getting money in to replace what he's reduced, and it's going to cost you guys with things that you actually need when it comes to necessities. This is how they're going to pump up their slush funds again. We're going to get straight into it, but it leads in from something else. You guys remember when Mark Carney went to the U.S. and he said he was going to handle Donald Trump? He was going to fight Donald Trump. He was going to go toe-to-toe on tariffs, that it was dollar for dollar, pull all the American products off the shelf, only buy Canadian, folks. Well, it did nothing. Elbows up, right? Did absolutely nothing. When we look at this article from the Financial Post, you'll have to forgive me again because the article needing to fit on the page. The headline says, Canada's new tariffs on the United States drop to nearly zero with exemptions. Retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods remain, including food items, alcohol and coffee, as well as clothing and cosmetics. So Mark Carney actually reduced retaliatory tariffs without telling anybody to zero. Pierre Poilievre tweeted out about this. But let's take a look at the article, and then we're going to talk about how this is going to affect you guys. Canada has effectively suspended most of all of its retaliatory tariffs on the United States products, tamping down inflation risks and improving the growth outlook, according to Oxford Economics. So again, they're going to pad Mark Carney and say, oh, he did it, ladies and gentlemen. He fought Donald Trump, and now Canada's easing back. He didn't do anything. Nothing changed. This is why I'm blown away at how stupid some people can be. It says here, the government imposed new import taxes of 25% on about $60 billion of U.S.-made goods in March in response to the first round of tariffs from the Trump administration. Canada also retaliated against the United States auto tariffs in early April by putting its own levies on U.S. vehicles. Now, again, when Mark Carney went to Washington, D.C., to the Oval Office, Donald Trump said, no, that stuff's staying the same. They asked why. He said, it's just the way it is. There's going to be no change. Prime Minister Mark Carney's government then announced a 6-month tariff exemption for products used in Canadian manufacturing, processing, and food and beverage packaging, and for items related to healthcare, public safety, and national security. Automakers got a break too. Companies that manufacture in Canada, such as General Motors, are allowed to import some vehicles into Canada tariff-free. Those exemptions means Canada tariff rates increase on the U.S. is nearly zero, according to calculations by Oxford. It's a very strategic approach from a new prime minister to really say, we're not going to have a retaliation, Tony Stillo said, Oxford's director of Canada economics, in an interview. It's a strategic play on the government's part to not damage the Canadian economy. This is where it blows my mind that no matter what Mark Carney does, they just flip it around that, hey, this is actually beneficial. Oh, it helps us. It helps us by Mark reducing it to zero. Retaliatory tariffs on some U.S. goods remain, including on food items, such as orange juice, alcohol, and coffee, as well as clothing and cosmetics. Remember that when we get into this later in the video. Carney fought and won an election last month, no he didn't, by convincing millions of Canadian voters that Donald Trump was the bad guy. Or what it says here is that he was the best candidate to handle a trade war, which buys about 3/4 of Canadians' exports. This had nothing to do. He used Trump derangement syndrome on the elderly to bolster fear. to get himself into office. He did the same thing Doug Ford did. He got his 4-year mandate. Prime Minister said Canada will have to strengthen its own domestic economy, partly through government-backed infrastructure and housing initiatives. Yeah, right. And seek out new trade and security alliances with other countries. But he's also made it clear he doesn't want to necessarily endorse dollar-for-dollar retaliation, which former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said he supported in principle. Now, isn't it funny that that is the case? Considering that throughout the election, they were talking about dollar for dollar. We're going to fight Trump. We're going to Team Canada, ladies and gentlemen, elbows up. And then Mark quietly reduces everything down. Well, here's how it's going to affect you. And here's how this is essentially not necessarily labeled as a carbon tax, but this is where they're getting the money back from the carbon tax. And it's what was discussed in those articles. If we go over to Ryan Gerritsen, again, fabulous Twitter account, go and follow him. It says, now we know why our media was running stories like this. It was to distract from the fact that our government lowered tariffs on almost everything except grocery goods. CBC, Global News, CTV, Toronto Star, Globe and Mail have not ran a single story on Carney dropping the tariffs. This is a problem. Well, why is that? Because Global News now reports Loblaw says the number of tariff-affected products will triple in the coming weeks. Now, this came out on May 14th. So your groceries are going up, your clothing is going up, all of your products that are required to live, to enjoy your life. And keep in mind, you have to eat. You have to wear clothing. Well, Mark Carney is going to get his money back from lowering the carbon tax by keeping those tariffs in place against Canadians. Mark Nixon chiming in, I agree it's a problem. And what makes things even worse is they call it U.S. tariffs when in fact it's Canadian tariffs on U.S. goods. Here it comes. The bigger question is why only groceries? It's as if they want to punish Canadians with high prices so they could remove them later to look as if they accomplished something. That's exactly what it is. If you look at a new study, good old CB Fixes All on the channel, highlighting this from the National Post, secret RCMP report warns that Canadians may revolt once they realize how broke they are. It says here, right from the get-go, the report authors warn that whatever Canada's current situation, it will probably deteriorate further in the next 5 years. We already know about Mark Carney's ridiculous, outrageous spending, which has gone through because it was labeled as preliminarily passed before Parliament was prorogued. It was already planned spending. So that makes it okay. We can just put $70 billion back, into the government's hands to pump out, to do as they wish with, to rack up more deficits. Keep in mind that we're talking about a budgetary deficit that Mark Carney predicted before running for prime minister. It was on his election platform that there are plans to be another $300 billion deficit in the next 4 years. All of this comes on the surprising loom that, surprise, surprise, Mark Carney doesn't want to have a budget this year. No, just let me spend. It's okay. We don't need a budget, right? Because if they were actually to disclose what the budget would be, Canadians, as that article warns, would revolt. They'd be fed up. They'd have enough. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Surely, with the way gas prices have gone, you're not saving very much from this carbon tax being eliminated. Most Canadians at the time of the carbon tax were said to be $100 away from poverty on each paycheck. So the question is, where are you going to be? And I don't mean to be a downer by asking it, but where are you going to be when grocery prices triple in the next few weeks? Let me know your thoughts down below. Leave a thumbs up or a comment down below. Again, these kind of stories get squashed immediately on YouTube. It helps get it out there, so make sure to leave a thumbs up and a comment. If it's your first time here, I hope this video has earned your subscription. Make sure as you're hitting that button, you also click your bell for all notifications so that you're alerted every time a video drops on this channel. You don't miss a beat. Join me live on the channel each and every Friday night for Friday Night Fringe, our live streaming weekly show, where I'm joined by the beautiful Mrs. Fringe as we go over everything that happened this week in politics, everything we know that's coming up ahead, and back and forth within the greatest YouTube community on the YouTube platform, full stop. I look forward to chatting with you guys outside of making these videos, but I most importantly look forward to chatting with you each and every Friday night, this Friday night, starting at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, here on the channel. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.